Thanks for talk. I got a question. What if you don't use React Native and you just render web view, so you can render canvas, and whatever you draw in canvas, you can share anywhere?
You're a big fan of canvases in WebGL, aren't you?
Just get rid of specifics for the platforms which you mentioned, like gamepads and stuff like that, which you can redefine, I guess. But canvas is a canvas. WebGL is WebGL.
So that would be the same approach as trying to use like Flutter, right? Because Flutter's impeller and Skia engine would be like a canvas, right? The challenge is you need to, especially in a space like this where you're interacting with remotes, I think you really need to find a good way to standardize it. I haven't seen something like that with canvases yet. Maybe there is a solution for it. Now, the interesting thing is Tizen, WebOS, those two platforms, LG and Samsung, are actually web-based platforms. So even when you build it with React Native, you have to use React Native for web to effectively create web versions of your React Native application. So in theory, it might work with Tizen and LG. Did you try it with Tizen and LG?
I tried with Tizen for sure. Like you said, like it's a web version of it's an operating system. Oh yeah, sorry. It's like Tizen and LG like are really like web-friendly operating system. But I'm not sure that you can like use the same logic because of course like canvas is canvas, but it depends how like in the bottom line is implemented or is allowed by the operating system. So there could be some issue in that, like something not supported.
I'm limited to what I could say, but I achieved the feature parity on 100-something devices with just a canvas.
That's good. Developing with what? JavaScript or?
Yeah, everything is just canvas, HTML5 canvas and JavaScript, nothing else.
Did you try that on TV as well?
Yeah, it's live.
That's good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very interested to see that.
Thanks.
Just a demo of it. Cool.
You have to VPN to United States to do it, but yeah.
It's a bit too much effort, man.
Cool.
So,
Does Canvas support accessibility? Does Canvas support accessibility?
Accessibility is actually an interesting one. So one of the limitations of the library that we have right now is we're trying to fix the accessibility issues because a lot of the accessibility happens on the native layer. So when you're interacting with these remotes, like the individual nodes that you're selecting need to have the accessibility coming from the native layer. So we do have a roadmap to actually implement that in the library, but I don't think Canvas would support that out of the box. Maybe it does. I don't know.
What if you want to build games for TV? What would you use?
So, like before we said that performance are important on TV because like the hardware on TV is not like the one on your smartphone or the console. There are implementation of games in Unity. So I did some tests with Unity, it's okay. But of course, like hyper casual games, don't expect like AAA games running on TV. So something like that. Probably you can use the canvas even for this kind of games, no? You can. Yeah. But it's about streaming games, no?
Yeah, but you still technically can play 4K.
Yeah,
but not if
a streaming platform.
Yeah, it's a
so
streaming
the rendering
platform.
is happening on a server away from
like if I actually develop a game and then deploy it on the App Store and then it can be downloadable by the user, like I need to know. If there is like of course, like you cannot do like AAA games. You can do like I don't want to say names of games. But yeah,
what you can build with React Native is you can build trivia games and the likes where the UI is interacting with a remote, right? There's a very limited. You're limited more by the UX side of it with native TV apps that are running, unless you have a console.
If you want to build Tetris,
I'm sure you could build Tetris.
Which one would you use?
Which one of what?
Canvas or
He says Canvas.
I will use, for games, I will use Unity, but yeah, of course, it depends. No? Yeah.
Hi, this is something I'm very passionate about because I used to work for Amazon for the team that creates apps for TV. So it's the big screen team creating apps for PlayStation and for Wii back then. Ooh. And one of the issues we had, so I'm very familiar with all the problems that you mentioned, and one of the issues we had was the video player and the playback across platforms. So Amazon, the team back then, we ended up building a custom player in C++ that we import to different platforms. So how do you deal with that for your clients through all those platforms when it comes to video playback or music?
It's actually a very good question. So oftentimes what you'll find is that most clients and the ones that we've worked with, they will drop down to the native layer for the actual player itself. So the UIs for the navigation and the menus and the item selections and the searches and everything is done in React Native, but you drop down to the native layer for the players. There's a few reasons, but I think one that comes to mind is around DRM. DRM implementations can get very convoluted and very complicated, and also can vary very much by each client that you work with if you're in a consultancy space. So there's going to be a lot of needing to hook into native layer APIs to be able to handle the DRM servers. So that's been one challenge. So I know that when we've worked on projects, a lot of times there will be native developers working on the player specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great talk. By the way, I'm maintaining your code. Thank you for that.
Do you care to comment on his code?
No. So one question that I have is, we always assume that the TVs would have the runtime for JavaScript. What happens when we want to deploy our app to, let's say, Roku devices, which doesn't have any JavaScript support, which has a whole another script called Bright script, which is, I don't totally recommend it. So what happens when you don't have a JavaScript runtime?
No idea. Great question. Well, Hermes is a JavaScript engine, right? So if it doesn't exist on Roku, then it won't run. No, but Roku wouldn't even support that, right? But do you have something to?
No, because Hermes would get bundled with the app basically.
Ah.
Everything in C++.
Maybe that works actually. Fair enough. I've not tried it. I really don't know the answer.
So you would ship a whole JavaScript runtime with your React Native app? Yeah?
You can always ship Hermes with the
And how would that JavaScript runtime allocate memory on the specific devices if you don't have the bindings for it?
Well, because Hermes has the binding, it has the runtime and the binding.
Does Hermes...
I mean, it runs on C++, so I guess it would have to be maybe compiled with the
specific flags?
or Roku device.
Oh, okay.
I guess.
Then you have to individually bundle for every other... device. Okay.
Speak to Alexander. He knows more about it.
Just ship runtime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have any more?
Great talk, by the way. Maybe let's wait for the web GPU instead of Canvas, and maybe wait for the static Hermes. 3 questions regarding the navigation. First of all, what happens when we have an overlay or a model or something in the front? How do you handle it? Second one is, if I'm a big fan of position absolute or something, and I mess the order how Yoga renders it. And the third one is, if I scroll the list too fast and it renders too slow, will I jump out of the list, or there's like focus trips?
Good. Okay, let's go through them one by one. So starting from the beginning, the overlays. If you go into the repo, I don't want to go into too much detail in the interest of time, but the menu functionality is also actually through an overlay. So there's a diagram that shows how you route the logic to handle overlays if you're putting an overlay on top of the actual main content. So there's a way that they've thought about it, that the Pierre and Matteo have developed this. Recommend looking at that and seeing how it is. The second question that you asked, I'll go through the third one because I remember the third one, and then if you don't mind asking me the second one again. So the third one was around if you scroll too fast. I haven't seen any issues with it, to be completely honest with you. We actually, before prepping these slides, I was spending some time with Pierre, and we were looking at like slowing it down to the milliseconds and seeing how it like removes items from the end of the list and puts them at the end. Didn't have any issues with that type of thing. So we weren't able to break it, but please give it a try and see if you can. What was the second question? I'm sorry.
The second question was if I'm a big fan of position absolute and I'm bypassing the Yoga layouting logic.
Yeah, that's the trade-off with declarative-based navigation systems. You have to make sure that you've logically placed in your component tree the component in terms of where you want the navigation to route through. So that's something that as a developer you're going to have to keep in mind. That being said, the position absolutes, once you start to introduce them in different places, you're going to have troubles regardless with focus management. So what I recommend is finding a way, like there's some cases where you absolutely need them and it's a different story. But in most cases you want to really try to make sure that the layouting is done the normal way, but using flex and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Thanks.
George Valens. You don't need to ask me a question. You know everything about this.
We'll come
up.
What do you use for state management in your TV app?
Sorry?
What do you use for state management in your TV app in Amazon?
In Amazon. I'm not actually developing a product. I'm a developer advocate. Okay, so like, yeah, like, I don't know, somebody like is actually developing an app like on TV and want to answer this question because like you can use different things.
Okay.
Legends.
Legend, yes. Just to answer Iris, if I may, about Canvas. I know that you can write in different programming languages like C#, whatever, Java, and compile it to WebAssembly, which is 4 times faster than JavaScript. However, it is 4 times faster in calculation. So I don't know, this game that you mentioned, if it has calculation, then it helps. Otherwise, for rendering, it depends on how you render. So I think React is more advanced in rendering than WebAssembly yet, but it's a competition. It's coming up.
No idea. I didn't sign up to do a web GPU talk, so.
Thank you for the talk, guys. I have a question. Is there like any platform limitations for the idle time? So I don't know, if I would like to run the app and play music for next week, will the TV or a specific TV platform cut off that app and go to the sleep mode? And can you actually somehow deal with that?
I think there's limitations on background processes. Giovanni kind of touched on it, but there's very heavy limitations on how much you can have in the background. So one of the things that becomes really important with TV apps in terms of performance as well is something like cold starts. So how quickly can your app launch from scratch? Because the OS will oftentimes kill the TV application the moment that you exit from it. It's not kept in background and memory like your mobile applications would be.
And so different OS are like handling this differently. So these are, the fragmentation here is still like an important.
Yeah, but like if the app stays in the foreground, so if you're actually interacting it or like living on the screen, is this problem still present or it's going to run forever?
I haven't seen anything, but maybe somebody else has something.
Samsung have a feature where I forgot how it's called, but Samsung have a feature so you can inject the content in like featured, which is like if you watch BBC or what, it will start inject this BBC content, which is supposed to be actionable.
Yeah.
But not every device will have it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys.
Sorry.
Great talk. Yeah, I had a few questions. It's not very technical, but just something I was curious about. Do you know what the kind of big players like Disney Plus, Netflix, what are they using right now for their TV apps? Because they're everywhere. And the other part of the question is, another big chunk of TV apps is consoles. So like PlayStation, Xbox, can React Native run there?
Good question. I can answer on the Xbox front. So you can actually use React Native Windows to build Xbox applications. I haven't looked into the PlayStation space because, well, frankly, I don't own a PlayStation. But the Xbox, because you need to build like a Windows app of sorts, like a variant of a Windows app, you can use React Native Windows to build Xbox apps. So that's on the console front. On the big players and what they use to build their apps, I think there's a lot of native being used at the moment. And one of the things that I've understood is a big challenge is the fact that a lot of native is being used for Android TV and then tvOS. If you have to support that, a lot of the big players will need to support all of these platforms, and then web as well. So you've basically got at least 3 teams at any given point working on just TV. Add that to your 3 teams sometimes if they have native mobile apps that are building web, Android and iOS, and you've got 6 different teams that are basically building TV and mobile apps. And this is, again, where React Native ultimately shines brighter than any light that you can imagine, because take all of these platforms, especially on TV where you don't necessarily care about that much like native specific functionalities. Like, let's go with YouTube. YouTube completely circumvents the way that tvOS asks you to render things natively. So they try to make it all match the same exact theme across all of the different OSs. I think for TV specifically, it is such a powerful tool. And I think what we'll see in the coming months and the coming years is that more and more people are going to start adapting React Native for TV. I think it's going to be a really big differentiator factor to allow people to develop at speeds for TV that they've never seen and reduce the costs beyond anything that they could have ever done before.
At least anti-factory. No.
Cool.
Great talk, guys. Two simple questions. I'm a little bit rusty on the TV, but I remember you can use dub index to force focus on absolute. It's still supported.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we try to avoid needing to do with space navigation is you don't have to do stuff like that. But yes, that's the way they can force.
Great. And second one, did you play with for Fire TV with Alexa and Google Voice for Android to get a, let's say, voice command, text to speech, something like that?
Not personally, I don't know about you.
I mean, I already had this question like in past events. Like the issue with that is they're totally different. So like if you are Fire TV with Fire TV sticks, you need to go to Alexa. So you need to develop a BSK with BSK. So like completely different from Google Assistant. So like I had some developers asking me, oh, can I access the microphone because I need to do some, like elaboration with the voice. And in Fire TV you cannot, like it's blocked. I mean, officially or normal developers, they cannot. So the moment that you press this is Alexa doing it. So you need to develop the part with the BSK.
And get the Alexa
in
network
Google,
wide.
Yeah, exactly. In Android TV, you can access the microphone or you can use the Google Assistant. There is this option. And with React Native, you can do both. So,
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you, in terms of do you think currently everyone is, concentrating on the new domain that would be having a proper front-end UX design in terms of usability, right? Okay. Do you think that, yes, React Native is it's okay, but do you think we should start, thinking about that, improving the UX design in the front end of it? So let's say, think of, Fire TV, right? Yeah? Fire TV and data, and maybe other, for example, UX design systems or even integrated systems. Sorry. The UX design, those are really terrible sometimes. Don't you guys agree?
Of the OS, like the main OS or the apps around? Like,
sorry?
Which design is there? Where? Like in the
apps basically,
in the
either
apps.
mobile apps or even, for example, otherwise.
So that's why you are doing a lot of works around defining which are the best guidelines. The best guidelines that you can actually use for the apps. I personally don't care if all the apps looks the same, because many people say okay, but then the apps all look the same. But like I said, they need to be user friendly for even I consider accessibility and other things. So having some common and clear guidelines is the best thing to do. We are trying to push more toward this, and then you can use whatever tech stack you want to use, like React Native. I can do the same exact thing with Kotlin. I did a presentation before, but of course, I'm only targeting Fire TV around OTP. But if you start from the guidelines, and we are working on it, actually, we are planning to write contents around this more and more, so that developers can approach these TV app developments with the best tool set for the users.
I think in terms of good UX for TV, there's two things that are important to keep in mind. First thing is good performance. The worst experience whatsoever is you have a janky app that takes 3 seconds to respond to any D-pad movement. The second thing is the ease of accessing content. All of these applications are content applications. You're trying to stream videos, you're trying to listen to music or something. If you look at the YouTube app, it does this phenomenally. You can use your phone, cast onto any TV platform that there is, Android TV, tvOS, or whatever it may be. You can cast on, and it can, even on Vita actually, you can cast on, and with one click it just opens up whatever you're listening to or watching. So the ease of accessing content within the minimal number of clicks, the ease of logging in, the worst thing is getting the user to type in a passcode on a D-pad. It is honestly an awful UX. And it's so simple to solve it by having a QR code that takes the authentication on your user's phone. It does it one time and it's done and dealt with. So these small quirks that make it easier for you to access content with minimal clicks, that is the mindset that you should be having as a developer when you're looking at TV. People don't want to deal with the remote. They just want to get their content and be done with it.
One more. All the way. Let's go.
Just to follow up on like ease of accessing the content. So we are having smart TVs for a bit longer time than just like a few years, right? Are we there, or are we gonna be there? Because for now we just have most of the apps for the TVs just like streaming content and that's it. So if you have some like more complex interactions, you have, let's say, just an example, Apple Fitness. You just go to the app, you stream it. And honestly, I'm doing these for the most of the things I need to interact on the screen. I just AirPlay them to my TV. Are we gonna get some more complex apps considering the lack of the UX? And because I'm trying, all your talk, I'm trying to figure out what possibly can be done there. And again, looking into the App Store, there are not much apps that are doing not streaming, but like
doing something else other than streaming. It's a good question.
I have a personal opinion about it. I have a personal opinion, but because you say complex app, and complex doesn't really match with TV. That's the thing. Because of the experience, not because of the hardware. Like I said, like I'm there, I'm here. Like I don't want to have complex interaction. I don't want to have complex app. Of course, like you said, like the streaming apps are the ones that are most successful, health and fitness, and then there is something about education. So like learning toward, like you can click the button, like do the answer to a quiz, something like that. So I saw something like that. But complex apps, personal opinion, no, because it's not the right media, but it's personal. It's not the right hardware for complex interaction.
Yeah, but I mean, like most of the apps we have, even like on the mobile, even when it's like a simple app, it still requires some like complex. Okay, let's say Headspace, right? Mm-hmm. It's like very simple app, to be honest. There is just tiles, but then you have a player. You can scroll a bit back, then select some duration. You can do like those interactions, which if you're going to the TV world, it's like a bit over.
There is a space for smart TV as well. And there is like I saw even in the airplane info system, like when you take a flight, when you get a flight, like and there is in the airplane info system, there is a space, but just like videos or like some very simple interaction. So it does not the complete experience of the mobile app.
It's not meant to be. It's again, it's just for consuming content. But what you'll find is even that like very basic flow of consuming content gets done so terribly. Right? Like how many times have you accessed a TV app and just by how annoying the login flow was, you just gave up and didn't use it? I've done it several times. So despite it being an actually simple domain, there's a few factors. There's a UX factor that you need to get right. I'm not saying it's overtly complex and you need to handle like very complex edge cases, but those like recipes for actually creating it is actually not followed in most cases. So a lot of room for improvement to get a very basic use case out there. The other thing is, again, the performance adds a lot of bottlenecks to it. So you're going to really need to optimize it. Even if you've got like 4 features in the app, you're going to really need to optimize it to make sure that any hardware provider that's manufactured in who knows where and has very, very crappy CPUs and RAMs will support it. And that's a challenge. That's a fun engineering challenge to deal with. Alexander spends all of his time doing it, and it's a lot of fun. So I think there's a space for it. It's not going to be complex user flows, but it's going to be optimizing, making sure that it works on every platform, and making sure that the UX is immaculate in terms of how easy it is to access content.
And also, I see another evolution of this. I mean, still is there, because I observe a little bit like the behavior of the audience with the TV apps. They usually have the smartphone together with them. So, like considering the smartphone as a second screen, that can be interact with the app that you're running on the TV can be like the evolution of that. There are some studies around it. There is some apps already like being shy in this behavior, but I see personal opinion even like more toward this, like smartphone as a second screen, interaction with the apps. Good luck if you want to implement something like that, because you need to interact with the native layer. But yeah.
Well, that's definitely a good catch, because again, back to my like personal experience, when I need to click on the YouTube, I find it annoying to use my remote control. I just go into the app and rewind it and do those interactions, or go to my favorites, because going to the TV and those like search and typing, that's going from one end to another end to just change the letter. It's like very.
How many of your apps have the same like nice UX and integration between your phone, like YouTube? How many of your TV apps?
Probably zero.
So there's a good space for developers to focus on, if I say. Cool.
Another question about the package navigation package. So LG is notorious about this. They have a pointer control remote that you can point to the TV and it pops up a cursor on the app. Yeah, like a Wii. And then they also released another device called Stand By Me, which is a touchscreen device, but it's a TV device. So how does the package handle these interactions?
It's a good question. I haven't tried it. What I would say is, it would be good to try. I think like, how do you build like normal React Native for TV apps on WebOS? I know Tizen has a similar functionality. I've seen Samsung TVs that have pointer remotes. I don't think that they require you to rework the entire focus management. It probably is handled by the OS, right?
But then your focus management is abstracted away from the device itself, right? So it's in the React Native space. So
it's a good question. I don't know. Let's try it out.
Okay.
I also want to add that in this case, LG is going against the guidelines of the DP, because it's actually using an interface that is like similar to the touch or the mouse,
Yeah, but as the TVs evolve, these kind of interactions will be coming up.
It's a good question. Do you have a TV to spare for us to test it on?
I want to test it.
I don't know.
If someone's got one of those TVs, I might.
I do have one with a pointer. It's very annoying.
Yeah.
Is Amazon written in React Native right now?
Okay. Which one? Sorry.
Is Amazon?
Which app?
Is Amazon app currently written in React Native?
Amazon like e-commerce.
No. For the TV. I'm not sure. Prime TV probably, or
Prime Video.
Prime Video.
Prime Video here. I'm not like developing Prime Video. So I don't know if
okay, cool. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Let's chat about that. It's a very interesting question. No, I haven't never had to deal with that.
Awesome, amazing questions, and thank you guys for the lovely talk. Round of applause, guys. Okay, and just to finish up, we've got Anisha from Amazon just to say a couple of words. Final little thing. Welcome, Anisha.
Hey guys, so I'm Gio's colleague from Amazon, React Native developer advocate. So we fight a lot between Kotlin. So if you have React Native questions, we have to earn our keep in pizza. So that's why I got to say a few words. So if you want more pizza, that's why I'm here. So we are really trying to push for more React Native content for Amazon App Store. If you enjoyed Gio's talk, like hands up if you enjoyed it. Hey, okay. We're trying to create more content. We've recently, for example, written an article on how you can create turbo modules for React Native for Amazon, or we've released an article on how you can implement in-app purchasing, so through Amazon App Store in a React Native app. We want to try to keep doing more content, so we need you guys to show your support. So if you can, just give either Gio or I a follow. Gio, what's your website? Gio, what's your website? Okay, so geolac.dev and anisha.dev. Quite easy to remember, hopefully. Follow Amazon App Store on dev.to, and that means we get more budget for more meetups to do more pizza. So thank you, guys.